G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast and this special episode, which we call the Mini Chief. These are short, sharp highlights from our fabulous CEO guests, where you get a 5 to 10 minute snapshot of the highlights from their episode. Righto, Chief. Without further ado, here is the Mini Chief episode for this week with Angus Stevens, co-founder and CEO of Strivr. So let's talk about where VR, AR is now. So Strivr now, you're really the country's leading VR and AR immersive learning studio. So you do a lot of learning and development and use this AR, VR as a method of learning. What do we now know about the learning process that this is really helping people get better quickly, more quickly, learning faster? What are we learning about?
So basically, to break it down, so virtual reality, you're chucking on the headset, you're in a totally immersed space. So unlike life where you've got multiple screens, multiple areas of being able to be distracted, you're on the goggles and there's nowhere to hide. You're just in whatever that environment is. So the beauty of that is that then not only can you transport the user to anywhere, the classroom becomes whatever that content is inside the VR headset. So you can transport the user to any location, but then also you can shift and play with perspective. So the thing that we know is the way that people learn the most is through experience. Like there's no faster way to learn than to do. Yep. And so the beauty of VR is it allows you to essentially do and learn through experience without the physical or emotional risk. And so you can try things out in VR and then learn from that to then take into the real world. So that could be simple stuff like speed to proficiency based on understanding by visualizing something, like for example, with Woolies, simple stuff like, is this avocado ripe versus this one, and you see them in front of you, and then you have to use your hands to choose which one's the right one, and you're off and running. So visualizing stuff really simply. Or it can be, more complex stuff like emotional intelligence and having a situation play out whereby the person that you're dealing with, say a dementia patient or a customer who's upset about something, and depending on how you respond to them will either escalate or de-escalate the situation. And so you can learn how to deploy theoretical things that you've been told in virtual reality, and thereby learn by doing and have this sort of visceral effect. If the camera is the user, and that's the way we set it up, then what happens is that the actors are then talking directly to you. So you feel very much present in the situation. So if you've got some old bloke yelling at you because he's lost his watch, and you've got these little pop-ups that then turn up of like, how do you want to answer this guy's question? If you answer it right, then the old bloke's going to calm down and you immediately go, oh, well, that's what I can take that skill and take it into the workforce.
Yeah.
So So that's the sort of play with VR. Whereas with augmented reality, the beauty of AR is that it adds a layer of information onto your existing situation. And so what that means is that, for example, if you've got instructions on how to, say, one of the pieces we've done was around air conditioning units. And so for TAFE students learning how to fix an air conditioning unit, they've got the little grid there and it shows how all the bits work. But we make the AR version of that, and suddenly you've got a 3D model of that air conditioning unit, and it shows that the gases come in here, they change temperature here, it then becomes this fluid, and then that's how the air goes cold or hot. Then it visualizes this really complex theory in a way that people can then make tangible and understand, and takes these sort of concepts and makes them into a 3D real world application. And then people are like, oh, right, I get it now.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because we're primarily visual and auditory learners, and it's just we've had to use reading and text because it's been the most accessible way to date.
Yep.
This is changing that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I suppose it allows you to do experiential learning more at scale.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, spot on.
A lot of experiential learning is really, so like one of my good mates works at the police academy, and he just gives a great example of how he was teaching two cadets who were about to potentially go, on the beat, and they had to finish the final thing, which was almost what you described there. Come into a room as a partnership. It's a domestic situation, and there's a player who's very, very angry. They've got a knife. You got to disarm them. And if you go in angry, they get worse. Like that, they're all actors, right?
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. They get worse and worse and worse. He said the first time they went in, there was a guy and a girl. The first one, she was really nervous. This girl, because if she didn't pass it, she's back to the start of the academy.
Yeah.
Weeks to restart. She comes in, she's got a taser on her hip. She comes in, she just pulls it out and just like brings it up and just shoots it, and it goes flying up into the roof. Like,
oh my God.
Slow down. Let's calm down and let's try this again. Then he starts to get sort of all off put by it. And he goes a bit crazy. He draws his gun in the next one. In the third one, he accidentally left his gun in the prep room. And so,
oh my God.
So he's taken his gun out of his thing. He's put his firearm on the bench. He's walked into the room. He's going to stop there. My mate's holding the gun going, were you after this? Why were you after this?
Wow.
So I can see how, like, but that's like, I think he's there doing that, taking days and days to coach this. Like, and that to me would feel like maybe something you would do after VR and AR training already. You know, again and again and again. We go from VR to AR, we go to real life. Then,
yeah, spot on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you see it as I mean, I think in some cases it is the learning, but in other cases it's like it's an adjunct. It's an accessory to other learning, right?
Yeah, spot on. So I think like anything, there's different degrees of complexity, and based on those complexities will then determine how much you need to then have additional support with it. So, for example, we'll build out self-contained modules where you just pop on the headset, you learn what you need to know, and it's so self-contained that you don't need a facilitator, and you can just go out there on the floor and you're off and running. Like frontline workers, there's a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then there's other stuff where, if you're looking at, say, microaggressions in the workplace or unconscious bias or, other, sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of things where you're looking at managers and how they're navigating stuff, then you want to use those scenarios to confront the user to actually start to think differently about how, well, firstly, the choices they've made and how they've behaved, and then from that to actually learn from it. And if you do something like that, which can be pretty confronting, you want to then have a facilitator after it to be able to debrief with and work through that. And that otherwise it can become counterproductive. If you have people sort of questioning how their behaviors are without having that support network to then work through what they need to do to sort of be a bit more self-aware and then use those behaviors in a more constructive manner, and you don't have a facilitator, then you kind of left, you sort of strip someone down without giving them the tools to build themselves back up.
That's right.
So and with anything, you want this training to be part of a broader program and so on. So,
Chief, there you have it for this week with our mini Chief episode. All the links and show notes can be found at chiefmaker.com/334. And if you'd like to stay in touch with Chiefmaker, just go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Hey, Chief, do you find that emails are pouring in and you just can't get in front of them? You've got all the social media things you've got to follow. You've got meeting after meeting and phone calls and text messages and probably WhatsApp, probably MS Teams as well. And Chief, there's just so many things to get done. Plus, there's all the challenges of being a family, most likely. You've got kids to run around. You've got probably trying to be fit and healthy. And you're just trying to work out how do you make it all happen. Well, Chief, we've got a short and powerful course for you called 7 Ways to Save an Hour a Day. The whole purpose is to help you be more effective with your time, to beat that overwhelm and get back in flow a lot more often. These are practical skills for anyone in a senior role. So Chief, check out chiefmaker.com/save an hour. And it's a short course. It's only $49 and it'll be well worth your time and effort. I absolutely guarantee you it's stacked full of practical tips. All right, Chief, check it out. chiefmaker.com/save an hour. Righto, Chief. As always, remember to stay happy.